So I've held every porn job in actual life. I've been a pizza delivery guy.
Oh, porn job. Okay.
I have been a stripper.
Mm-hmm.
I had a homeboy that was a plumber, and I used to help him on work sometimes. I've been a construction worker and a teacher. That's like every porn role in like mainstream porn. In real life, though.
What about for women porn roles? Have I checked some of those off?
Were you a lady plumber?
They don't have lady plumber jobs.
I'm sure they would call that shit like it's like certain professions they just put like lady
in front of it
for no fucking reason.
Well,
like it's not the same job.
Based on some of the pipes in the house, yes, I've been a lady plumber.
Oh shit.
Okay, what else?
What?
A therapist.
Yeah, therapist. Therapist. That's more recent. I feel like old porn jobs for women were like cheerleader.
I've been a cheerleader.
Student.
Definitely been a student. What else?
What's some other porn?
MILF.
Is that a job? MILF specifically?
It's my primary job.
Being a mother is a job, but MILF specifically is saying the desire of somebody else is setting your job.
Okay.
Don't be letting the men frame your outlook on life and shit.
This is technicality here. It's a fucking job for me to be wanted. But mother, yeah, that's
what are some other
father fucker.
Father fucker. I feel like DILF needs to be more prominent in the world.
But see, the thing is that DILF usually comes associated with like dad bod, right? And that has not...
I got a father figure.
There you go. It hasn't really risen to the same level of attraction, but it's getting there as body positivity movements are taking place. People are definitely starting to find men of all shapes and sizes attractive. And with that movement with the beards, like to me, that set it off like that, we started to look at men outside of sort of the frame of what...
Because beard can hide a lot of ugly.
Lord knows it do.
Well, what are some other? I can't think of any other like
porn jobs
like that they've done to like redundancy. You know what I mean? Like that is just like all the time.
Criminal, professional criminal.
That's only for black folk.
They
always like was it a whole bunch of these companies had like sets, like prison sets.
I know.
And it was like, yo,
that's
what
sick.
the fuck?
You're a rapper. And that is, that's up
I haven't
there.
seen many like porn where it's always the
rapper to my crapper, or what was it called? The rapper. It's you can look it up.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's
and then hip hop anal.
Awful.
Hip hop anal.
Oh yeah.
You can't do that without a rapper.
Yeah, that's true. Is it the ass that has the talent? Or
they need to get these keyboards away from white people because they just type anything come out their little fingers when they let them loose.
Yeah, that's real. But I mean, other than the jobs, what we are discussing today, segue, is...
But really, Hip Hop Anal is the title of a series, a porn series.
They made more than one of those.
They did. They did. A whole
Hip Hop
series.
Anal, The Return.
And they have Hip Hop Anal Queen.
Hip Hop Anal Queen.
Yes. And it's a bunch of white ladies. Yeah. Okay, go on ahead. Segue.
Well, what I was segueing was that we are going to be talking about the misconceptions of sex workers today.
Okay.
So, other than those 5 jobs that lead to sex in porn, there's a lot of stereotypes, misconceptions, unsubstantiated truths.
Claims.
So I was trying to get my
I'm pulling up my list.
My journalist on real quick. No, but they have these misconceptions about people in the sex industry, which is $1 billion industry, which is a huge, almost recession-proof industry in certain sectors of it. Everybody, meaning you, knows a sex worker.
Yes.
Everybody has someone who has participated in some form of sex work in their cipher, like in their family, in some close-knit part of their life. Whether it's been being a consumer, whether it's being a watcher, or someone who is actually within the industry. But still, there's all these misconceptions.
So let's define what sex work is. I'm going to pull from, I'm just checking out this magazine that was written about, this article, written about two years ago by Mallory Monsner. 6 myths you got all wrong about sex work. So I'm going to be pulling from here today.
Okay.
And the definition that Mallory gives us is sex work can be broadly defined as using sexual behavior as capital. A client pays for a service and a sex worker performs it. You like that one?
I like that.
Yes, it transcends the computer, face-to-face sex work. Sexual behavior doesn't necessarily mean penetration. It could be sexting, it could be audio. It just erotic labor in exchange for money.
Okay. So let's name some of these professions then.
Okay, so like my voice on this podcast and us getting sponsorship. Hello, support sex work. Well, let's see, being a cam model,
porn performer, or any part of porn.
Excuse me, I'm a little distracted today, but when we said cam model, I don't think we've been on the radio since you won your 2 new FetCon awards for.
Thank you to everyone who voted.
Yes, this year's top male fetish performer and top male cam performer. Did I got the titles right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
thank you very
congratulations.
Much. Thank you. I actually celebrated by going live on cam. Coming on my award.
Defiled his
and
award
eating it off.
In good fetish form. And then cucked your award.
I figured that's as a way to celebrate and thank the fans. I thought that was a very nice way.
And they appreciated it.
Oh,
yeah, they tipped and they paid for that erotic labor.
Yeah.
You're a sex worker.
In so many ways.
Okay.
So,
forgive me.
Full service in person sex work. Phone boning. Yeah. I don't know why I still do this all these years.
Phone service operator.
Phone service operator.
Yeah.
I like that, but I always like phone bone. Like that's just.
Well, some of us don't have a bone.
Everybody has bones. No, but I you know what I thought was decent.
I done met some spineless motherfuckers. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Coming hard today. Get them.
I'm a little riled up.
I hear that.
Okay. Girl 6. I'm sorry.
No, but that was a good portrayal.
Yeah.
What else we got? Strippers, dancers, go-go. Go-go and stripping is different. What else? I'm missing some things.
No, there's. I mean, I'll go and say like BDSM providers because they often like to separate their work specifically, somewhat understandably. What else? Exchange erotic service for money.
So if it's erotic service, then what if you're like a video vixen? Also, you know what? Like a lot of people on OnlyFans try to separate themselves from like porn and all this other. Like you are also in sex work.
Yeah.
If you are on OnlyFans doing nakedness, even if you're not engaging with another person.
Honestly, nudity doesn't make the difference either. If what the client
suggestiveness
exactly, if what the client is paying for is some version of arousal through the behavior that you're doing, the sexual behavior, the twerking, the suggestive stripping, the seducing, then you're doing sex work.
With your gray sweatpant boner.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's awesome.
You're welcome. A sex worker too.
Welcome to our industry. The benefits package is in the mail. Well, okay, actually, so I'll tell you what Mallory has here. I'm acting like I know Mallory, but I'm going to keep saying her name until I do, and she rewrites this article, including us. That's how this is going to work. Sex work can be an intimate or erotic labor performed in exchange for money, shelter, or subsistence. So she even expands it to trade for other things outside of money, which I think is pretty cool. And then when we think about sex work being one of the oldest professions. Yeah. So, you know, trade and barter and things like that were more commonplace than just the exchange of money. And this included escort, street workers, brothel workers, exotic dancers, BDSM practitioner, and people who do camming and more. All right. So huge umbrella for sex work. And lots of myths around it. And I think even us having not a challenging time, but realizing how broad the spectrum of sex work is and how people define themselves as sex workers or they don't, or they're not really sure if that's what it is. I do think that sort of increases the myths around it because it is not, how do you say, like properly recognized the way that, you know, if someone is an engineer, there's civil engineer, there's, you know, okay, I just only dated a civil engineer, so I don't know. There's the other kind of engineers. There's some music engineers, et cetera, et cetera. But those have, you know, there's a place of study for them. There's a degree or a certificate that comes with it. And so because sex work operates, even though it operates in plain sight, but they pretend that it operates in the dark, it becomes a little more difficult to label, categorize, and have discussion and understanding of. So here's where we come in. All right, so do you want to jump into these?
Definitely.
All right, here's the first one. We hear this all the time. It is like a major hashtag for us. Sex work. This is the myth. Sex work is not real work.
This shit is harder work than most people got.
Why am I so tired?
I mean, if you think about it, let's just take a cam model, for example. Mm-hmm. A cam model has to set up both their physical surroundings. They have to set up their online presence. They have to work and build that online presence. They have to perform. They have to deal with their client base. You know, there's so many different levels to it. I'm sure they have to just, you know, keep your books. Yeah. You have to, you know, pay your fucking taxes because all of these sites that you're on reports your shit. So you have to pay your tax. You do all the things that in some people, you just go to work, show up for a couple hours. You don't do the books for your job.
No, you only do that one job that you do poorly.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
that
really
you've been promoted to out of
incompetence because nobody want to work with your ass at that first level, so they just move you up in somebody else's department. Yeah, it's just a job like any other entrepreneur job, you know. And I think that's the other piece is that we need to really frame it as entrepreneurship because it's not unionized. There isn't, I mean, with an exception of like if you work at like a strip club, for example, but even those that work in a strip club have to acquire their own costumes. Yeah. Many of them make their own costumes.
Shit, they all got to tip up percentages to the DJ, to the house mom.
So they're almost independent contractors within that club, right? Yeah. They have to pick their music, pick their sets. They have to
practice.
Yeah. You know, and the part, like you may be working in that club, but there's work that's happening in that club that no other professional can do, which is talk a motherfucker up out their money or into that dance. So when a lot of what you mentioned is marketing, accounting, customer service, and the artistic talent, interior design, costume design, hair and makeup.
All of that.
All of it. And tech.
Yeah.
That's the most frustrating part. Yeah. So that sounds like work to me.
It's a whole lot of fucking work.
The other thing is that it's also very consistent. Anything from whether you are talking about street-based sex work, there's a time and a place for you to show up to in order for you to get that work.
Yeah. You have costuming.
Definitely have costuming. You
have marketing.
Yeah.
You know, I think with any entrepreneurship, sex work or otherwise, you understand you don't work a 9 to 5. You work a 24/7.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you are always working. And let's say if you're a cam model, you'll know these are my hours that the shit be popping off,
Mm-hmm.
and it might not be the hours in which your time zone is.
Exactly.
You know, or you might have a couple time zones that you have to hit in order to make your money. You know, so there's so much. Just like what you said, when you have to crunch numbers in so many different ways to get your bag.
Market research. I remember I learned so much from a pro cam model, Lucy Liu, when she was sharing with me, like, opening up her cam studio, which she supported other cam models. And she was just like, oh, my hours are like 7 a.m. to like 12.
Yeah.
So she would, without telling too much of her story, get her family up and ready and out, and then she would go to work. And it was so cool because she was like, all of her client base is overseas where it is the end of their workday. So it was perfect. And then by the season, she would change her hours because it would be when their kids were at school versus the summer when their kids are home. She would sort of tweak it to what was happening overseas with her clients, and what was happening in their lives. So, we see that with restaurant owners, right? They change their indoor dining versus outdoor dining based on the seasons and their customers. Yeah. So anyway, sex work is work shit. That was work just explaining that shit to y'all. Moving on. All sex workers are trafficked.
Nah.
There's that.
I think there is this conflated idea of that because people who are like super anti-sex work try to put the two together in order to make their case.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like what you've seen with Sesta Foster and some of these other things. It's kind of like we can shut everything down if we connect these two things together. But there are people in sex work who come from all different walks of life. Like I think just in porn, like the people that I meet. So people have left teaching and Wall Street and all these different industries because sex work was the industry that they felt fit their skills, fit their talents, or the skills and the talents that they learned in marketing, or the skills and the talents that they learned in civil engineering. They felt that they could apply to sex work. And there are many skills that can both be applied to sex work, or when you are in the vanilla world, that sex work teaches you to really be able to apply. But then, I think within the conversation of trafficking, there are so many of us who choose, like, this is what I want to do.
Right.
Unfortunately, there are people who are trafficked. And that trafficking, though, doesn't always lead to sex work. There are people who are trafficked that work in your local fucking restaurant.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like when I was growing up in Jersey, there was a restaurant around the block from where I grew up that got shut down because they were trafficking people
to work in that restaurant.
To work in the restaurant.
So here's the thing is that it's not sex work if someone is being trafficked. That's slavery. That is something else. That person is not being compensated, and that they also are not consenting. If they're not consenting or they're being compensated directly for their work, the market value of that work, it does not fall under our industry at all. The same way.
Like you noticed that we didn't say pimp as a sex worker.
Correct. Yes. That is not... It's not an agent, right? It's not a sex work. It's not consensual. It is not market value. Maybe an agent, right? So someone who is taking a proper percentage for actually brokering deals that both people are consenting to use. Yeah. Right. So when people talk about sex trafficking, I think it's important we should talk about sex trafficking. We should talk about human trafficking. We should talk about that trade independent of sex work. Sure. The same way as if we're going to talk about running a restaurant, we should talk about running a restaurant and having equal labor laws, et cetera. And then we should talk about people that are trafficking through restaurants and other, massage parlors and et cetera. So yes, the conflating of the two is really harmful.
Speaking of massage parlors, no, Deshaun Watson, masseuses are not sex workers.
I'll even go a step further. Massage therapists are not masseuses. And all of those people are not sex workers unless they are consensually offering sexual behaviors for the exchange of money or other things, as we defined earlier. The other part about to me that makes it incredibly harmful is it takes the autonomy away from sex workers if you are having this like Captain Save 'em for people who want to do the work.
Yeah.
And that really does, like, it's so aggravating when you are providing your service and someone is like trying to save you from providing your service. It's just like, you're wasting my time.
For sure.
And if you're not going to pay for this because you think that I'm participating in some type of like crime ring or I'm being abused, like that is a waste of our time. For those of us who just live regular lives, if someone thinks that we're being trafficked, then they start to make all of these implications on the rest of our lives and our decisions. They think that we can't make decisions on our own. And so it really is important to make that differentiation that there's no way that you can be sex trafficked and be a sex worker at the same time.
Word.
Now, the other thought
Taxi Driver was a movie, Travis Bickle.
The other thought, too, is that people who may have been sex trafficked at one point may choose to become sex workers. And that's okay. The sex trafficking part was not okay. Them choosing to have understood that this can be done in an ethical way, in an autonomous way, is okay. So we can see that with this, say, said restaurant worker who may be brought here and trafficked to work at that restaurant. And once they have been liberated from that illegal operation, they decide they want to open their own restaurant.
Word.
Would anyone stop them or, say, it's terrible that you learned how to run a restaurant from this place of being trafficked and now you want to do it yourself? Like, no, we'd be like, we should go support that place.
Facts.
Yeah. All right. Whew, I'm mad. I'm working on identifying my emotion at any given time, and that's it. Okay. Sex work is inherently harmful.
Nah.
To who?
What consensual adults choose to do with their bodies. What consensual adults choose to do with their money. It's their own business.
It is. So I teach this class called Porn in Practice, and it is for therapists to be able to be informed of working with sex workers. And some of the first questions that these budding therapists ask are like, well, what about sex addictions? Okay, that's a sex addiction. Or what about if people are spending too much time watching porn? That is very subjective, because if I get to the point that I can spend 10 to 12 hours just like watching porn and masturbating, like I actually feel like I'm incredibly successful with my life. That might be a good day. I know. Like I feel like that's I did everything that I had to do to arrive at this point that I could just like indulge in pleasure. Now, if I'm doing this 10 to 12 hours a day and I'm neglecting activities of daily life, like taking a bath or taking care of my responsibilities, then that's problematic. Then we need to
and that's with anything.
Exactly. That is exactly my point. It can be any type of obsession. So, or, negative coping skill. So I often work around this, sex. If you define sex work or sex in general as bad, you will find a way to somehow vilify it and make it the reason and the cause for everything.
Facts.
So I totally agree with this. I think I just want to kind of zone in where this talks about specifically this. And again, she's bringing up myths that people perceive that it is degrading. The work that we do is degrading. So at some point, it wears at our dignity. And I personally am revered in my work. I don't take work where I am not placed on some pedestal, told probably things that are just way too complimentary. I don't take work unless it is uplifting and it feels good. And those of my colleagues that take work that is anywhere in the realm of degradation or humiliation or belittling, they love that shit.
Yeah.
So that's wrong. What do you think about that?
I can't say it any better than nah. No, I do think that it's important to say that also every individual is different. So there are people who have had bad experiences within sex work. There are people who have had bad experiences as doctors. There are people who have had bad experiences as lawyers. I'm sure that percentage is high as fuck.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I'm saying? So there's so many. I think that where people feel the harm comes in could be, some people feel like the way you're treated by others is harmful, right? But if you're in Congress, people be talking shit about your ass all fucking day.
Word.
They be coming for you. They be setting up shit outside your office. They be setting up nooses outside your office and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Shitting on your walls. Insurrecting.
You know what I'm saying? So, there's a whole lot of professions out there, that get, I don't know, shit. If you're a fucking teacher nowadays, you're getting threatened at PTA meetings for teaching history. So there's so many jobs and professions out there that you can have harmful experiences. Right. It is not limited to sex work. It's like one of those things, like you have a job, you live, you exist in the world. There's going to be a huge possibility that you're going to have a bad fucking day at work.
Right.
And then kind of like going off of what you said about like the feelings about it. For those of us who are working to decolonize our minds from that kind of shit, you know what I'm saying? If you like what you do, if you love what you do, how many people can say they love their work in any profession? And if you are in sex work and you love what you do, you know what I'm saying? I enjoy going to work.
Yeah.
So I think it's exactly like I am in full and total agreement with you that it has to do with how people feel about sex.
I've been in the workforce since I was 14 years old, and this is the only job that I walk in and people are like, Queen! What can I get you? Why the fuck would I ever think of doing anything else? This is crazy talk. All right, here we go. Number 4. There's 6 of them. You think we're good to go?
I think we're good.
All right, cool. Criminalizing sex work is the best thing for society. No.
Nah.
No.
When you have situations like that and you force it to be in the dark, then another element of society is going to control that sex work because they're going to see that this is an opportunity to get in here without any laws, without any regulation, without any protection for the people of that work. So that is when you wind up with pimps. That is when you wind up with criminals running the industry, So I do think it's important. Like, I think it should be decriminalized across the board.
Agreed.
And by decriminalized, there should be certain regulations to keep people safe, like in porn with like the pass system and things of that nature. But I don't think that it should be so regulated that it's more regulated than, industries that are polluting the planet.
What would be the equivalent to you? Because this is... these words, and I think people are often like well-intended when they talk about decrim, when they talk about legalization, right, which is a difference, right, because then the legalization becomes the regulations. And I think ultimately, like, people who speak on both sides of those are, to an extent, trying to break up the stereotypes and the myths about sex work. But, like, help give us a picture of what career path is currently in place that you feel like there's enough oversight to allow some safety and recognition of it as a actual, career or, work. But it's not like the fucking formula industry that is, poisoning children left and right.
I think it's tough because when you add regulation to anything, there's going to be some group of people that's like, that shit is too fucking regulated.
Well, okay, so we're talking loosely here.
But I'll compare it to something that was also illegal in the United States, which is liquor. Okay. Right? So that's actually one of the few things that was ever amended in the Constitution is... Oh,
so you can change that bitch?
Oh, you can change that motherfucker whenever the fuck they want.
Ain't that some shit? Okay.
That should be changing every now and then from Bible to student term paper and shit. But no, I think, like, for example, if I go to a liquor store right now, there's certain brands, there's certain things that have been, checked by that are regulated. But it's illegal for me to just, brew up a scotch in my bathtub.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's certain levels to the shit, and I think that there should be certain things in place to keep people safe.
Yeah.
Especially like if you've ever been an in-person full service sex worker or just anything that's in person, even BDSM. There are people that prey on sex workers because they feel that if that sex worker goes to the police or goes to somebody for being abused, no one's going to believe them because of the work that we do.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So it would be good for it to be decriminalized so somebody can say, hey, I said no, or this person isn't even my client and they attacked me or whatever. I do think that, and this is as a sex worker, like there should be certain places where you might not want to be trying to sell openly on the street. You know what I'm saying? Because not
open carry.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a way to have that. And then if you have, like when I was in Germany, in Hamburg, they have like this whole section of Hamburg where if you are looking for a sex worker, that's where you go. And it's completely legal. And people have their own space.
Yeah.
And you can't go in there and fuck around. The police will beat your ass if you go in there and fuck around. So there's a air about the shit. People can go get tested. People can be safe for themselves physically and medicinally, all that kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? So I think that makes it better. But there's also like a nice little section of that shit so that children know they're not allowed to be in there. Because I don't think the world needs to engage in your fetish or engage in your sex work.
Yeah. I've been on some policy calls around sex work and have heard the range of from decrim legalization to just like wild west, like let us do what the fuck we want. And I definitely agree with you. Like there is a safe middle. And I don't think that everyone will be satisfied in that middle, and that's okay. That it is because of the range of work that we can do, and also just because everyone is different and respects boundaries differently, that everyone won't be satisfied. But I remember someone saying on one of the calls, like they don't want to give their ID to these cam companies. They don't feel like they should have to do that. And I was just like, no, I'm against that, because I do think we need to know who is doing the work. I don't think that company should be like selling it, right, or turning it over to the police and that type of thing. But we do need to know that you're of age. We should know if both consumer and content creator exists in this world and can be, back to whatever the work is that they're doing. And the of age part, it's like we do have a responsibility as sex workers to protect people who may be trafficked into our industry, may be entering this industry illegally by age, and also people that are preying on children. So I was just like, no, that's too loose. And so I think it is important for us to.
For most jobs, you have to present your ID.
Yeah. And your social security card if you want to get paid, and, et cetera. So I think, we can't have it both ways, where we want to be respected as workers in this society, but not join some of the culture associated with working in this society. So I know we actually should have a whole talk about decriminalization, legalization of sex work with some of our friends that are working in policy.
Somebody up here doing some lawyering.
Yeah. Let's get the lawyers in here. Okay, so number 5 is legalizing sex work is the best thing for society. And I think we really, really dug into that on the last one. But it is a myth. And we also know that the legalization of things that have been outlawed before can sometimes further marginalize the people, all the people that are in jail right now for marijuana charges, while everybody else is...
They said Biden is looking it over.
Biden, if you don't fix this shit, you ain't black. Fix this shit, Biden. Well, you know, Kamala is looking over his shoulder like, you better not free them people I put in that thing. But at the same time, I'm sure she's enjoying the money that it has brought to her home state.
Word.
Legalizing it. But anyways, that's another conversation.
Yep, we'd be back on that one.
I do think that there are incredible similarities that we would see with legalizing sex work and needing to undo the damage that making it illegal has done. And also watching very carefully who would profit off that shit.
And I think that's one of the things, like going back to alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the difference between alcohol and marijuana is in America, marijuana has always been associated with blacks and Latinos.
Yep.
But the ones that was running alcohol when the shit was completely fucking illegal, their kids become president. Shout out Joe Kenny.
All right, number 6. This is a myth. And please, producer extraordinaire, do not pull this one sentence out as a highlight with no context.
I want to see this in her IG stories.
I can be a feminist and be against sex work. No.
Just that part.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's just the part for you.
But this is why I fuck with Mallory. I don't know her, but this is why I fuck with her. She said, sorry, no, you can't. That's good writing. But no, you can't. This is how this shit is huge between, I'm going to say their names, SWERFs. And I don't even know what this shit stands for, but I know who they are and what they do. You know, this feminist movement that doesn't include all women, right? They love that all lives matter shit until it comes to all women when it comes, you know, to feminist topics. And this is so, this is just like so on brand with Black feminism, you know, specifically how white women will have this movement around women that excludes Black women. And when we talk about sex work, I know, and we're not talking about excluding only Black sex workers, but when we look at the high propensity of Black and Latina women that are engaged in sex work, because white men can't live without us in their sex work, in their sex consumption, it really... It becomes incredibly targeting. And the same thing with trans women. A lot of their argument is that the work is so degrading and all of these other things. And so many of us that are not coming at this work from such a privileged place choose sex work because it is the most flexible. You know, it allows us to have earnings that you cannot make in other jobs based on this society and how the society ranks for women, women of color, trans women, any marginalized women. It doesn't allow us, our work schedule, our society's work structure doesn't allow women to have children and actually be able to take care of their families and provide for their families. So sex work is a wonderful place for women to be able to have their autonomy of their business, of their body, of their time. And how can a feminist be against that?
Word.
You know? And it's like because sex work is, it feeds into the patriarchy. Well, bitch, you don't think that you being a secretary at some man's office don't feed into the patriarchy? You don't think that women that are selected as hostesses or models to sell particular products are not feeding into the patriarchy? Like, we live in a patriarchal society.
Everything feeds into it.
So unless you're going to dismantle that shit in the meantime, a bitch got to eat.
And you know what also feeds into the
What's that?
To the patriarchy is that you're also saying that sex work doesn't have men in it.
Thank you. Or that some of my clients are women who enjoy being with women.
Yeah. And I think all of the things that we've gone through speak to this very, very narrow-minded idea about what sex work is and what it isn't.
Yeah.
You know, I think the one that I get the most also, and this one is always like, goes kind of back to the harm, is everybody that's in sex work was abused as a child. And I always say to people, like, if you look at the percentages, no matter what profession you're in, there's a large percentage, too large, any percentage too large, of people that were abused as children.
Absolutely.
It matches the fucked up statistics throughout all of society. There are more people, I think, who speak on it that are in sex work because whether it's through having to deal with it to get over it, to be in the profession, or learning through things about like consent through BDSM, or reclaiming your sex through sex work,
right?
You are more open to speaking about it, because also we have to speak about it because so many of our clients have been through this as well, and they're not sex workers.
No.
So they might come to us because they're not comfortable sometimes speaking to a therapist such as yourself. So they get into these conversations with their sex workers because they're like, I'm here for sex so I can have this sexual conversation with you and not feel bad because I know you know what I'm into, or have to have this conversation with you so you don't do something that triggers me. Yep. You know, so we are confronted with these kind of conversations that then I think makes us more open to speaking about it. But throughout society, there is so many people who have been harmed and abused, unfortunately.
Yeah, for, those of you who are in a non-sex work job, the next time you go to your work convention, your annual work education convention, and you're in a room of 1,000 people, the stat is, you could do like every fifth or every eighth person, it's one out of 5, 1 out of 8, we'll have that stat in this show, has been abused or treated sexually inappropriate as a child. So that's any of us, if you look at your followers as you're looking at watching this episode, and you're just looking at your followers, you can count if you just go every eighth, so I completely agree with you, because where the offense is sexual assault, it gets also conflated with sex work, right? But unfortunately, it's like, anyways, I don't want to go too deep into sexual assault specifically, but there is a huge misconception. There is this idea that only poor folks would do this work, and we have met some people that are.
They come from highfalutin society.
They do. They really do. And they stay there. They sustain it in sex work, right?
Word.
And there's so many stereotypes, and I think that last comment, I love the fact that you said it really shows a narrow view of what sex work is, to think that this is just an industry, if you kind of absorb all of those, just an industry of sex trafficked women who are at the mercy of their clients.
The one other one I'm
their
thinking
clients.
of is because I'm in sex work or because I'm in porn, that I want to fuck you specifically.
Ooh, sorry.
And there's always like those people that are just like, yeah, that's what you do. I'm in your inbox right now.
Fuck me. But that's the stereotype that, I was talking about sex addiction, that if you're in this work, or even that if you consume this work, that sex is on your brain constantly, and that you have absolutely no control of who, what, when, where, and or how or how much.
Word. Word. So
that's wrong.
Or that you could just speak to us any kind of way and think that shit is all right. Try that shit at the bank.
Well, there you go. That's also that very limiting idea of like that you don't know what you're doing, you can't possibly make good decisions, or that you like or are into being degraded.
Or I don't have to respect you because of the job that you do.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, but we see that shit with people that treat all types of people that are in positions that they think are lowly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like they'll talk that way to the people that bring them their food at the restaurant, like the waiters and waitresses or something like that. Like,
no, don't do that.
Nah, don't do that shit. And then the last one that I had is, especially with us, because we're parents, people are always like, well, what about your kids? And all of it, like all of that kind of stuff. And for me, I'm like, this is the only job people think, like, no, I don't bring my kids to work. Mm-hmm. If you're a fireman, do you take your kids to go put out fucking fires? No. You know that there's a separation.
Right.
Like, or do you tell your kids what you do and some kind of and they always expect like you to tell them in great detail and things like that?
Well, the president of the United States wanted to show his kids what he did so deeply that he brought those fucking classified documents to their vacation to go over it with them on summer vacation. That was inappropriate. So you shouldn't be bringing your work home like that. No, these are so good. They are definitely so on point. Make sure you listen to our show on sex positive parenting so that we can explore more of the myths that are around that piece. Trying to think.
Oh, I thought you was getting into the wrap up. Like you.
Yeah, I'm about to wrap this.
We finished or we done?
I'm a sex worker. Put some respect on my name, on my job title, and do whatever y'all got to do. But we want benefits.
Don't nobody else get health care, but we want that shit.
Yeah.
Word. Bernie, make it happen.
Oh, Bernie.
Yo.
Bernie would have been with this shit.
He would have. This Royal Fetish Radio, King Noir, Jasmine and Jasmine. Where can they find us?
On all the things that we haven't been banned on yet. At Royal Fetish Radio on Instagram.
Yeah.
At Royal Fet Radio on Twitter.
Uh-huh.
On YouTube,
yeah.
Royal Fetish Radio.
Take that.
On my OnlyFans, where I take that.
So do that shit. RoyalFetishXXX.com. We see y'all for the next episode. Peace.